There is a growing body of debate that corn-based ethanol could be taxing our economy, our system, more than helping it. Respond to that.
Well, as I just indicated, there are a number of studies that have been done, probably 30 over the last couple, 3 years, that pretty definitively suggest that maybe from 3 to 15% of the total increase in the price of food can be attributed to the corn that's going into the ethanol industry. Well, 15% of a 5% price increase is something less than 1% of the total price increase. I think that it's a good straw man that we right now enjoy whipping because we don't know what else to whip. By the same token, we can't not get along and not be sensitive to these pressures that people feel. I think the most important thing to remember is that we went through something similar to this back in the 70s. When we had the great grain robberies of the early 70s, what happened? Prices for wheat and corn and soybeans went dramatically higher. We ultimately took corn from $1 a bushel to a $2 a bushel average. And what did we do in that process? We imposed export controls, we imposed wage and price freezes. As near as I can tell, the only people that made any money were the ones that built or made the little pins that said win, whip inflation now. What we did was we made dumb policy decisions. We assumed that somehow human ingenuity wasn't capable of overcoming the challenges. It was an uncomfortable disruption. We had a lot of inflation, we had a lot of price rising. There are very, very distinct similarities to what we're going through today. The thing that I am very comfortable in is that the pie, the economic pie, is not stagnant. It will grow. That human ingenuity, if we are inclined to let markets work in a responsible way, and if we aggressively pursue these other challenges that are really hidden opportunities, we're going to get through this. Does it mean that we're going to be uncomfortable for a while? Perhaps. But I think in the long run, the pie will get bigger, that we will all collectively benefit and end up coming out of it on the other end in much better shape.
In the past decade, parts of rural Oklahoma have really suffered from losing factories and losing manufacturers because no longer could we be the lowest cost producer of certain goods. As we go into the next century, how can rural America survive knowing that there will always be someone that can do it cheaper?
Well, I think there are a lot of issues here, and clearly we haven't figured them all out. But I think the easiest one to point to is that this year we're going to import something in the neighborhood of 6 billion barrels of crude oil or crude oil equivalents. At today's price of $130 or $35 a barrel for crude, that's almost $800 billion. If we can displace, and ESA, the Energy Independence Security Act of 2007, signed last December by President Bush, is passed through Congress, commits us to producing 36 billion gallons of renewable liquid fuels by 2022. Well, at 36 billion gallons, that's more than the equivalent of 1 billion barrels of imported crude oil and a refined product. Well, 1 billion barrels of imported crude oil is worth $135 billion today, which is 50% more than the total value of net farm income last year. That's how big this thing is for rural America. And most of renewable energy, with the exception of photovoltaics that may be on commercial buildings or something like that, but whether it's wind or geothermal or anaerobic digestion or ethanol or biodiesel, it's all rural in origin. If we can originate 1 or 2 or 3 billion barrel equivalents of imported crude oil, that can be 130 or 400 billion dollars. That goes a long way, and it's not a quid pro quo. It's just money that we're not spending overseas. It goes a long way to build out much better paying, higher quality jobs for a resource that we need domestically that, quite frankly, we have no desire to import from people who don't particularly like us or may not be all that trustworthy. And so I think this is a great opportunity, but it's going to create a host of new public regulatory, public policy, business model, investment opportunities in ways that, quite frankly, are not yet totally fathomable.
So while our economy may well be going through some growing pains now, you believe they're necessary to get where we need to go?
I certainly do. And having said that, I'm very empathetic at the challenges that it's creating. But I think if we keep our eye on the long ball, this is an extraordinary opportunity, particularly for states like Oklahoma that have traditionally a strong role to play in fossil fuel and fossil energy. And now when you combine that with your other natural resources and some of the research capacities that you have here, this is a really rather remarkable opportunity for the state.
Thank you, Mr. Dorr.
Thank you.